Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Explore More Show. I'm Ken Conan. This is Mr. Ted Blank. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Great. Thanks for joining me. This is our part 2 of our river cruise series that we're doing. I think we're going to do 4 parts. There's a lot to cover in these river cruises, and it's definitely a topic that I just smile when I think about it because I had such a great experience the first time I went. Again, Mr. Ted Blank is from Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventures. Where do we want to start today? Where we want to cover some major rivers, or where are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we'll take a little bit of a dive into where you can go on a river cruise. And I always like to joke that my first river cruise was kind of an accident, and I ended up on a river cruise in the south of France.
Really?
It was a really incredible experience. It was a different time. It was about 20 years ago when river cruising was really, really different.
Yeah.
But I just so appreciated the convenience of it, not having to pack and unpack, and the ability to stop and see places that, even though I'd been to France many, many times before, I'd never been to this area. And so I got to see it in a totally, totally different way. And so, river cruising is just such an awesome experience. And you smile, I smile. I've probably been on 20 river cruises in my life. I should actually count them up for sure.
You should,
sometime. But I always smile when I'm getting ready to go on my next river cruise because it is such a relaxing but also very enriching way to travel and to experience some of the most interesting parts of the world. Europe in particular, a lot of folks have Europe on their bucket list. Maybe they've been there, they've dabbled a little bit, but the places you go on river cruises are a little different than the places you would otherwise go. And they make a nice blend of what I call kind of those marquee ports of call and then some of the smaller off the beaten path areas. And so we'll talk a little bit about the Rhine and the Danube, which are 2 rivers that probably about 80% of people who are taking their first river cruise will cruise on the Rhine or the Danube.
Really? Okay. High percentage. Well, I would fall into that category. I've cruised on the Rhine.
You've cruised on the Rhine.
And I'm set to cruise on the Danube.
That's right, you are.
In March.
Yeah, you are.
So I'm gonna check the boxes.
Check the boxes, yeah. And the nice thing about river cruising is you can go in either direction. You can go northbound or southbound or eastbound or westbound. And generally the itinerary is going to be virtually identical. There aren't going to be too many differences in terms of what you're going to see. But maybe we'll start with the Rhine and then dive into the Danube.
I love it, and I love it. And the Rhine, let me see if I can flex just a little bit here. The Rhine will either start in Amsterdam or Basel, Switzerland.
That's correct. Yes.
I'm learning.
Yeah, so actually you'll start in Amsterdam, head south along through Germany.
Okay.
And then along the German-French border before the cruise ends in Basel.
I love it.
And Amsterdam is such a great place to start your river cruise.
What a fun city.
Fun city, really, really easy to get to. The river cruise companies will offer pre-cruise extensions in Amsterdam. And those are essentially...
What does that mean?
It's essentially a hotel package with transfers from the airport to the hotel and the hotel to the ship included, as well as some sightseeing. Okay. And typically that sightseeing is a guided walking tour of the city. And then you'll have some free time. And one of the things that we love to do for clients is to help them customize those pre- and post-cruise extensions. And so we can help arrange tours of the 2 art museums, for example, in Amsterdam, the Rijksmuseum and the Van Gogh Museum. Okay. And we work with art historians and art curators who can really give you a very different perspective on those museums than you would get if you just went there by yourself and kind of walked around. So we can help put them into context for you, I think is a great way to put it. And we can help with those kind of concierge requests or ideas to fill some of the free time you would have as well. Or you just have free time to explore on your own, do a little shopping. Yeah. Have a nice meal, relax.
I've got to share a fun story. So we went to a pub when we hit Amsterdam. And the first thing that the bartender tried to do was sell me a Heineken. And I'm like, no. And then she said, well, just try it. And I'll be darned, Ted. Oh. That was one of the best beers.
That's right.
And it was, I won't go into the details, but it was amazing. So if you're there,
you can tour the Heineken. You can tour the Heineken.
That's right.
Actually, there's another distillery there called the Bowl.
I forgot about
distillery,
that.
BOL. Yeah. That you can tour. So lots of things to do.
Fun city.
In Amsterdam.
Really
fun city. Then you'll embark on the ship, and the ship usually spends the first night in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And then the next morning, normally you'll take a canal cruise. And so you actually won't go on your ship. You'll get on one of those little glass top boats and have a chance to see Amsterdam from the water, which is very interesting.
It's amazing the canal system they have. Like, I was blown away.
Yeah, it really is. And when you think of how much had to be put into building that and maintaining it,
right?
And, all the quirks that come along with living along that, it is really an interesting, very, very interesting city.
The other, I got to jump in real quick.
Oh,
the other weird thing that I found was along the canal on both sides, there are boats that people live in.
Yes.
I never knew that.
Very expensive real estate. Yeah. Real estate in Amsterdam is quite expensive. So people live on boats.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is an interesting city, and it's a great place to start or end a river cruise. But then you'll head south through the Dutch countryside, and you're actually on a little bit of a canal. You'll eventually connect with the main Rhine River, right on the German border. And normally the first port of call in Germany is the city of Cologne. Cologne is a very big European city, and it's home to one of the largest cathedrals in Western Europe, the Cologne Cathedral.
Sure.
It took them over 1,000 years to build the cathedral.
Hold up. You said 1,000 years.
Over 1,000 years. Yeah, not because it was particularly complicated, but the folks in Cologne have a reputation for enjoying the good life. And so perhaps they weren't quite as efficient about building it. And the cathedral was finally finished after German unification. And the Prussian government sort of essentially took over Germany, and the Prussians are very efficient. So they got the rest of the cathedral done in about 50 years. But it's an incredible cathedral, beautiful stained glass windows, gorgeous architecture. It also has the relics of the three wise men. So the bones of the three wise men are in the Cologne Cathedral. Wow. You can see the reliquaries.
Amazing.
Where they're buried. And the other interesting thing is that Cologne is also, as I said, they like the good life. So if you like a beer or pretzels, there will be some shore excursions that will offer you the opportunity to do that as well. And so one of the differences between kind of the good and the better and the best with the different river cruise companies is the number of choices you'll have for excursions.
Okay.
And so as you move up to better and best, you'll have those choices of different things to see and do. So maybe you've done enough cathedrals in your life, you don't want to spend a lot of time there. Kind of do the express tour of the cathedral and then go on a foodie tour.
Yeah.
So lots of different ways to do that.
Let me ask you a quick question, because my neighbor asked me the other day. He's a little bit older, and his wife, he's got a hip that's so right now, and walk-ins. Tell me a little bit more about accessibility. What does that mean on river cruises? What does it look like over in Europe with a river cruise and accessibility?
Yeah, that's another great question, very common question that we're asked. Europe is not as accessible as the United States.
Sure.
And so what we have come to expect in the United States is not always available in Europe. The streets are often cobblestones.
Right.
Elevators in older buildings may be really tiny. Hotel rooms may have big sills or things like that. And so for folks who are in wheelchairs, it can be tough.
Okay.
And so that's something that is really important to have a conversation about. But if you have a cane, if you have a walker, many of the river cruise companies offer a more gentle type of a walking
gentle walkers
that are available for you as well, that move at a slower pace. You're not going to see quite as much as maybe the regular tour or even the active tour that's available, but you'll see enough to really enjoy it. And the nice thing is if you're traveling with a spouse or family members and you have different levels of mobility, you can take different tours as well. So some of the river cruise companies do a great job of offering alternatives for folks, but being mobile, at least being able to walk with a cane or something like that is probably a pretty basic requirement.
Yeah.
Stairs,
absolutely.
being able to navigate some stairs.
I will say I was, when we traveled the Rhine, we were with the Gentle Walkers group one time. Because I was just like, I need a gentle walk.
I need a gentle walk today.
And it was amazing. Our tour was very in depth. We didn't move as fast. Obviously, we're gentle walkers, but it was the depth of what they covered. Yes. I was really enjoying that.
Yes.
Versus like just almost moving, really hustling and getting little snippets. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was my 2 cents.
I'll actually give you the opposite too. I was in Giverny in France, where Monet's gardens are.
Yeah,
and I did the walk from the ship to the gardens, and it's about a 2-mile walk.
Wow, Ted.
The gentle cruisers could take a bus ride there. So we had 2 hours to walk there, and the tour guide gave us so much information in those 2 hours. And it wasn't like it was, sprinting or running a marathon. It was just a pleasant walk along the river. So lots of options in terms of the speed and the pace that you go.
And I think what you just called out is a perfect example of partnering with you and your team. These little things where you're like, you might want to take this. It's a nice walk and you get a ton of info. anyway,
and I think that is a benefit of having been firsthand to many of these places.
Yeah.
Is we can give you some of those little insider tips that you aren't going to find online.
100%. All right, I'm derailing us a little bit. Back to the Rhine.
Back to the Rhine. So we'll get through the Rhine today, but Cologne is the first port. The ship docks about 100 yards from the cathedral. So you can get off, walk up the stairs, and you're right there. So really central location. And then the next day you're going to head south, and you'll travel through the Rhine Gorge. And the Rhine Gorge is probably the most scenic stretch of the Rhine River. It's where the river gets really narrow and starts to curve, and you have all those castles up at the top of the hills. And it's just a beautiful morning of scenic cruising. And wineries stacked along the edge. Yeah. I mean, just neat. And the on board the cruise, you'll get kind of a narration of the history and the mythology of the Lorelei, which were the mermaids that would eat the seamen out there. And it's really kind of a neat experience, a little Wagner opera thrown in there. And then you'll stop in a little town called Rüdesheim. And Rüdesheim is the southern end of the Rhine Gorge. Beautiful little town, very charming, just sort of your quintessential German river town. Beautiful shops. You can take a cable car up to the top of the mountain where there's a real scenic overlook. Yeah. You can stroll through the wineries. They're famous for their Rüdesheimer coffee, which is, it'll kind of put the hair on your chest. It's a coffee. They pour the coffee in there. Then they put a shot or two of brandy in there. Oh, my. Then they light it on fire. And so it's brandy spiked coffee. So you'll have a chance to experience some Rüdesheimer coffee, usually after dinner. It's a kind of an after dinner drink. And then the ship spends the night in Rüdesheim before you head south again. Okay. And you'll have a choice there. The next stop, you'll have a choice between visiting the town of Speyer and the town of Heidelberg. And both of them are interesting towns. Speyer is famous for having two very large cathedrals, different architectural styles, so you can really see the difference there. Nice little town to walk around. Yeah. Heidelberg is famous for its castle. That's kind of a castle ruin that overlooks the city. It was a university city as well. Really charming little downtown you can walk around and explore. So, mid-sized cities, very interesting, but very German. Yeah. And then the next day you're going to have a total change of pace because you're going to be in Strasbourg in France. Right. And so France, Salzburg is part of that part of France called Alsace-Lorraine that's bounced between German and French control over the years. So it's very French, but does have some German influences in it as well. Beautiful cathedral there. The Strasbourg Cathedral has an incredible stained glass window. It has a very interesting astronomical clock as well that you can watch chime the hours, and it's really worth seeing. The downtown is charming, half-timbered buildings and little French cafes and patisseries and just, very French feel to it. Very different than what you would have experienced for the last couple days in Germany. Sure. And so generally the call in Strasbourg is for a full day. And then you'll head south a little bit further. And again, the different cruise lines call it slightly different ports. But one of the typical options is to visit a little village in Alsace-Lorraine that's called Riverside. And it's just beautiful, half-timbered buildings. It's where they filmed the live-action Beauty and the Beast movie. So just charming village set in the winery, the Riesling growing areas of France. You can have a Black Forest cake there with some Riesling, just kind of a charming area. Or you can head into the Black Forest in Germany and see some of the cities there, Baden-Baden, Freiburg, charming little towns. Baden-Baden has a beautiful spa in it. Freiburg is famous for its canals that are actually kind of drainage canals built into the water, or built into the sidewalk. Yeah. And so it is a really, quintessentially German town, but very old and very historic and pretty well preserved. Huh. And then unfortunately the cruise ends in Basel, Switzerland. And so you could head home from there, or the cruise lines will offer a post-cruise extension in Switzerland, where you can visit Lake Lucerne, Zurich, and some of the other historic places in Switzerland. And so 7 days on the cruise, 2 days in Amsterdam, 4 days in Switzerland, you'll end up with about a 14-day cruise if you take the whole package together.
I got to put a quick shout out in. Lake Lucerne was beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
That was beautiful. The town was beautiful. Yep. The food there was amazing. I mean, it was like a fairy tale.
It really is.
It's amazing.
It really is.
And then we did the Pilatus.
Mount Pilatus.
Yes. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, so Mount Pilatus is a mountain you could take a cable, or it's actually a funicular up to the top. And that's the one that has the open air funicular on top where you can stand outside.
So it's got two ways to the top.
Right,
they've got kind of a train funicular, and then they've got, I want to call it a gondola.
Okay.
And it's huge. And you're going
up about that steep.
I'm afraid of heights too, Ted. It was a problem.
Switzerland might not be the place for you.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah, but it is definitely fairy tale land.
Amazing. Amazing. You want to wrap us up? I know we talked the Rhine today. Next time we'll talk the
Danube. But yeah, the Rhine is a great first river cruise for you to consider taking. And we can help you kind of decide which cruise line is right for you and which itinerary is right for you. So you can visit our website. It's tedblanktravel.com and just click on the request more information link, and we'll schedule an appointment with you and talk about the Rhine River cruises in depth with you.
Love it. Thanks for joining me today on the Explore More Show. My name is Ken Conan. He is Mr. Ted Blank with Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventures. See you next time.